Hello everyone, my name is Stuart. Today we are going to be looking at Rivian, RIVN. This might be a little bit different than other stock analysis that you're used to. We're going to be looking at it from our social sentiment dashboard, which essentially tracks the top trending tickers and social sentiment trends across social media. But then we'll also dive into recent performance from Rivian, kind of take a look and see where it's valued right now, what the stock price is, and if it makes sense as a long-term hold. So if you can, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below. Would love to hear some feedback. If you want to see anything else about Rivian, drop a comment and I can put out another video diving into that topic. So awesome. Without further ado, let's get into it. So Rivian, where we're going to start is just based on this analysis that George Lucas, one of our investment analysts, put together. And essentially, he was looking at the Stocktwits and Twitter trends. So I won't spend too long on this, but just going to provide a quick overview. So tracking Stocktwits, if you're not familiar with it, obviously very similar to Twitter, but focuses on stocks only. We see that the average daily message volume is 114. I'd say that's fairly low compared to the typical average that we see on Stocktwits in kind of the mid hundreds. Similarly with the impressions, 300,000 impressions over a 24-hour period. Not huge, but not terrible. What's interesting to note are kind of the Rivian Twitter influencers. So keeping tabs on what are the main accounts that are posting about Rivian on Twitter, the hashtag RIVN, because obviously the larger the account, the more people see a tweet about Rivian. And as we've seen in the past, the impact of retail investors on stocks is pretty significant. So it's definitely a trend that is useful to keep track of. So just looking at this quickly, we've seen over 72 hours, let's see, 36 accounts that have over 10,000 followers tweet about Rivian, and then 2 large accounts with over 100,000 followers tweet about Rivian. And I'd say this is fairly in line with average, probably a bit higher. Unless someone like CNBC tweets about Rivian, you'll probably be in this range. Cool. Let's dive into the actual dashboard itself. So I already have it pulled up here. We'll just quickly give you an overview, but essentially this tracks all the stocks across Twitter and Stocktwits, gives you a bunch of filters, whether you want to look at price, earnings, the options, what the intrinsic value is, IV change, prior IV, things like that. But right now we have Rivian pulled up. And what I can do is just show you here. Boom, there we go. So this right now is looking at the number of posts, the price, change of price, volume change, and market cap. But what I find is quite useful is the actual dashboard itself, the chart. So as we see in the last week, right now I have price in green and then impressions in purple. Price, pretty self-explanatory. Impressions are how many people see a tweet with the hashtag Rivian. Again, this goes back to the more people that see a tweet about Rivian, typically the more people that get involved, and they're more likely to probably trade Rivian, because regardless, at the end of the day, the stock price is what people are willing to pay for. If it gets hyped up, people get excited about it, more likely to buy. Pretty simple. So what we've seen, this is back at April 4th. So Rivian is about just shy of $47 a share, kind of had a significant drop. When we go from this, and again, this stock, or I should say this chart shows the price change from close at 4 p.m. To open the next day, 9:30 a.m. A bit of a drop overnight. But what is key to see here is going back to impressions. So we see Rivian opens at about $43 a share, kind of drops in the morning, but then there's a spike in impressions. So a lot more people start tweeting about Rivian, get engaged with it, and we see a bit of a jump up here just before market close. Unfortunately, the next day, overnight, opens at it dropped close to $3 a share, $2.50 a share, but again, big jump in impressions here. So people are tweeting about Rivian. People see tweets about Rivian, about 2.5 million people just before market open around 8 a.m. And we see a jump. So opens at 39 and starts rising about $40 a share, probably hitting close to 41. But then as kind of the excitement and hype drives down, a bit of a drop before market close. And then same kind of thing next day, drops overnight, get a bit of hype in the morning, and we see the price go up. And I can actually zoom in on this, look at the 72-hour. So if we look at 1 p.m. overnight, so off to a hot start in the morning, as I said, 8 a.m. going to 9 a.m. jumping impressions, price jumps, drops down again, but then we see another uptrend in impressions, and the price picks up a little bit. So that's kind of giving you the macro view, and again, you can look at different time frames, but it's useful to see what's going on from a trend perspective for Rivian. What we can also look at, which I find is quite useful, is what are the main accounts that are tweeting about it. Again, because it goes back to the concept of the more people that see tweets about Rivian, the more hype it gets, kind of the more involvement from both retail as well as institutional investors, traders. So if we look here, we can see obviously Seek and Alpha. You have to take it with a grain of salt, their analyses, but the fact that they have 200,000 followers when they tweet about Rivian, a lot of people are going to say it. Few more tweets about Rivian, and again, this gives you kind of that next level of insight. So not only do you see how many people are seeing it, but you see kind of the general sentiment about Rivian. And what we can do is actually look at these in real time. So following this, especially in pre-market, super useful, as well as through the trading day. Okay, so last thing just want to touch on is jumping over to the Utradea stock page. So this is kind of an overview. You can fully customize it, whatever widgets you want to see. But what I wanted to highlight is the Wall Street targets. So kind of looking at the targets set by Wall Street analysts. Again, a fairly useful proxy in terms of what the street and what investors think about the current valuation of Rivian. Most of them have initiated a buy rating. And this one was 18 days ago, a month ago. This one hold. But a lot of these analysts are maintaining a buy rating, which is typically a good sign for Rivian. So hopefully you found this useful. Again, I'd say just based on what we're seeing recently in kind of macro trends, I tend to think Rivian is kind of undervalued at this point. If we look at the 52-week range, I mean, that's pretty telling here. It was probably a little overvalued when it was put out into market. 52-week range, it's pretty much near the bottom of that. So it's hard to think that it could go lower. I don't want to say that definitively, but I think we're at a point where we're starting to see a bit of a rebound. But if we take a look at, let me jump over to general. So, mixed news headlines. Again, you have to take, depending on the source, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Like Motley Fool, Investors Place, they'll run headlines that are the complete opposite of each other. They'll say, why Rivian's a great stock buy, and then they'll run a headline the next day that says why it's a terrible investment. But if you can find kind of more useful nuggets within the news, definitely check it out. So yeah, I mean, the fact that they're on track to meet the 2022 output target, that's a good sign. And again, I'd say Rivian, either you're playing it as a trade, day trade, swing trading, or you see it as a long-term investment. And obviously the way you approach this stock will be different. So again, hopefully you found this useful. Links will be below. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe. If you want to see something else, drop a comment below. We'll respond as soon as I can, and then can hopefully release another video. Thanks.